Welcome to the second episode of the Middle of the Meal podcast with your host, Sandwich.
The worm, but sandwich? I
Yes,
thought we
the
were going with the
sandwich.
hound. I thought we were going with the
What are,
hound.
what are you talking about?
What
Oh,
is huh?
right. Yeah, that's right.
No, there have been a lot of interesting developments since last time. I'm on a more high-tech setup now. A laptop, not so much not as much charm as like having my phone taped to my desktop, but I hear you're having your own like technology problems too
Oh
recently.
yeah, for the past like month, I've been fighting this printer. Um, and I mean, it's really been a fight. Sometimes I can't get it to print anything at all. Sometimes it'll just print the colors. But today it spat out this beautiful gift that we received on the very first short that we ever uploaded. Um, it's this
Truly.
I know you can't see it very well, but it's a framed comment that we got on the very first short. I believe this was the very first comment we'd ever received, and I'll share it with you now. Um, this was for Them Bones. We were talking about Them Bones, and the comment was, "None of it is for Gen Z. You guys couldn't even understand the concept of what was going on when this music came out. You're way too soft." That was the comment that we got. And when I tell you, I cannot think of a better comment. This made my whole week. I was so happy that we got this comment because I was like, I was thinking it's going to take a while for us to get a comment like this, but this is like a peak comment right here. Amazing. I'm so happy with it. How do you feel about this?
I feel like that's incredibly like formative for like what we're trying to do here, you know?
Yes,
Like
yeah.
we're just two juvenile punks talking about 90s music. We weren't around back then, but we do love
Mhm.
it, so it's good to see the folks from back then already have these opinions on us.
The
One
folks.
short in, one short in. The folks, yes. The older crowd.
Yeah. I mean, this is pretty incredible. This is pretty incredible. Just again, just the context of it being literally the very first short that we'd ever uploaded, and this was the comment that we received. I'm really glad that we're reaching a wide audience and that we're really connecting communities. You know what I mean? I think that's the takeaway that I'm getting from this.
No, yeah, we're building bridges of animosity and hatred
Yes,
with our past generations.
but this is being
The middle of the
hung in my room, just so that's like out there because this is just like
I don't know.
genuinely
It's a
incredible.
trophy. It's a trophy.
Yes, yes. The only thing that would make it
Great.
better in true Gen X fashion is to put like a little participation, like you tried sticker on it. True Gen X fashion.
I mean, do you think that idea has changed though about being soft in relation to what kind of music you like?
It's interesting because why are we soft? You know, Especially considering that we enjoy the music of the '90s. But I mean, from this comment, like they weren't soft back in the '90s. Like you're telling me that Down in a Hole wasn't a soft song? Like, is this what we're saying? I mean,
It's yeah, that's really interesting. That's definitely a song about like crying out about your feelings. So it is interesting what that person does think soft is. That generation maybe too.
right, yeah, like, I don't. How is one not soft when you're listening to '90s music and to grunge especially because it was all very, I think that grunge music was very emotional. Even the more popular songs of grunge, like Black Hole Sun, that's a sad song. You know, it's a very
And
like
it's
soft.
definitely intense, though, still. Maybe a softness with intense emotions being displayed, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I think it's a good descriptor for grunge as a whole, musically. Like, with all those bands, I do think you can say it's a common thing there. Very intense, but still discussing more, like, soft subject matter.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I think that that's a good thing for us to lead into like you know, I think the question that we're really trying to answer today is if grunge were released today, uh would it become as popular as it was in the 90s? Like could it succeed in the same way? Um and I think, you know, I think the first good thing to talk about here is just, you know, what the makeup of our generation is, right? Like what is Gen Z? How does Gen Z react to music today? You know. I mean, what do you think is it that Gen Z really attaches to in music today when you look at like the popular artists of today?
I would say, especially with just streaming being so widespread that music is at your fingertips, I think it's trying usually to try to match a vibe, whether it's in a car or a hangout. And I think that typically tends to be more chill, low key kind of vibes, which something like say you shuffled an Alice in Chains album, you're definitely not getting a chill, relaxed song typically.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's more low key vibes, I think, are being sought after when it
So
comes to
people
music.
people aren't really looking for emotions in music anymore, you think then? Like they're kind of just along for the ride, whereas maybe music from the 90s was a little more you're really at least grunge and like rock metal, you were more seeking a feeling specifically.
I mean, when you hear people talk about what these albums meant to them as they came out, you hear a lot of stories of, oh, this was the first time I've seen a form of media like speak to my like personal like grievances in life, like loneliness or like addiction kind of thing. And
Right. And you know, you bring up a really good point with the addiction thing. Grunge, I mean, grunge and addiction went hand in hand. Do you think? I definitely think so. You're
I
looking at a lot of
think
these songs from the 90s, like they were all very drug influenced, I think.
it was an indicator of that subgenre of rock music, I think, for sure. Very much so, very just druggy music, a lot of things being inspired by that. Like today, I don't, definitely not a subgenre that's highly inspired by addiction, I think. So cohesively, like Dirt. Dirt is an album all about
Right.
addiction. You definitely don't have many projects like that being popular today.
Mm-mm. Well, I think this, I mean, we kind of talked about this when we talked about Dirt, but like kids these days don't do drugs. Not really. I mean, not like they do, but not
Not
like
to the
heroin that
severity that
influenced the
things like
90s, you know?
hard
Like
drugs, yeah, are not a staple of the generation, I think is a good word.
yeah.
Not something you
Yeah.
think about typically. Like you don't think heroin. You think maybe weed or something else, but definitely not
Yeah.
heroin.
Right.
Is that, do you think that's heavily tied to that generation though? And its appreciation at the time of this music being like a new thing?
Well, yeah, because I think one of the things you said was when people are talking about these grunge albums, uh or really just any of these albums from the 90s, they're talking about, you know, how this was like the first thing that or the first audio that they'd heard that they could like really relate to, right? Like it became very formative for them because it was something that they were really attached to. It was the first time that they were hearing something like this. And I think that's very indicative of what society looked like at the time, you know. I mean, you could say similar things for nowadays. There's definitely still some artists that are popular that can still relate to what's going on within our generation today, but a lot of grunge was very relationary to your day-to-day life, you know. And for a lot of people, like part of your day-to-day life was being influenced by these drugs, heroin especially. Heroin, I mean, we know that heroin was huge in the 90s, you know.
Right. And I think the way, because drugs, of course, weren't absent in like the 80s, 70s, but I think just the way addiction and the use of these drugs is talked about was definitely different than like Motley Crue talking about how they're doing like cocaine. It's definitely a very different atmosphere it's setting up. Like the song Angry Chair is definitely not a song that could have been made, I think, by like one of the big bands in the 80s. It just I don't think matches the vibe of that time.
That's a really good point, I think. I think that 90s music uh or like the difference between an 80s drug song and a 90s drug song was like an 80s drug song was like drugs are something that you do, and a 90s drug song was like drugs are a condition of you, I think.
Yes, like 80s more so it's a visualization of like the trip, and
Mhm.
90s is more so the after lingering effects that has on your soul.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that's an interesting thing to talk about, especially like relating to today's generation. I just I feel like you can't really talk about that thing with a lot of people in our generation. They call you unemployed, You can't talk about these like, you know, philosophical concepts or like it because it's all about production. It's all about, doing something. You can't really just like
Yeah.
sit with what you are, you know.
It's not that deep, bro. It's not that deep is a very
It's not that deep.
common
Yeah.
sentiment, definitely.
I
Which,
do hope we get more people calling us unemployed. That is a hope. That means we're
but
succeeding, bro.
I don't think that's necessarily a thing that's changed though. But I think people are more quick to throw that out because of our new culture of irony, I think. Because
See,
unemployed people call unemployed people unemployed, right?
this is
For
true.
like for the hell of it to be like smart about it.
Right.
So I think that maybe that didn't exist in the 90s, being so ironic about everything. Because I don't think that like Nevermind could have been like the most popular album on its release, like if we had the same kind of culture as Irony. Like smells like Teen Spirit, bro. What does that even mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean that's really one of those lessons that came with grunge because we can talk about, the birth of grunge and then the death of grunge. And the birth of grunge was really like um I mean, maybe you could say it a little more eloquently than I can, but it was really like, oh, we don't like everything in the 80s. We hate consumerism and we hate capitalism, you know. And that was really like and then the death of grunge kind of the same thing, like, oh, look at all these big bands making all this money, like you can't be serious.
Yes,
You're talking about, like you can't be serious. It's all bullshit, you know.
right. Is that kind of just symptomatic of popular music though? Because I think everything gets parodied at some point, I think. But do you think what does grunge get parodied for, you think? Like what kind of things does it get parodied for?
Well, I'm gonna take that in a slightly different way. I think that grunge was the first time where we actually really thought to our like almost the ethics behind what it is that we're subscribing to and what it is that we're subscribing our time to. Because the beginning of grunge was very, grunge was a movement, and it was very I mean, it was like the punk, but if it were popular, you know. I mean, there were grunge had a
Right.
lot of punk influence. Um, and onto that, I guess it was really the first time where in the mainstream, a lot of people were looking at what they were consuming and asking themselves like, oh, like these other big bands that I listen to, they're not like Pearl Jam, who's going to Ticketmaster and wondering my tickets are so expensive for all these concerts that I want to go to, you know. So there was a big like, oh, you know, fuck capitalism, fuck consumerism, behind. But then you know you look at it and you're looking at the money that these bands are making, and you're like, oh well, they're the same way. But I think that grunge was the only era where we actually looked at that and we thought about that, because now I really don't think we do that as much anymore. Grunge led to the birth of new metal, and the new metal like I think kind of turned into metalcore, and now it's kind of just like it is what it is. I don't think people look at that anymore, you know.
Right. But I think that speaks to the to how cohesive the movement was in its issues, in its front men all being against seemingly the same things. I think it was just a very cohesive movement of music. Like it's really easy
Right.
to put the grunge bands in like their own space, right?
Yeah.
Like prog, you can't just say prog. That's a very encompassing genre, right? But grunge, you think of the same 4 or 5 bands.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's why it stuck. I think it was definitely a movement and just a sense of community. Oh, if you like Nirvana, you probably like Alice in Chains, probably like Pearl Jam.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. You know, I think we were talking about Gen Z. We were talking about how we definitely have this culture of like productivity. We have this, I guess we kind of have like a little gatekeeping culture. This was a question that I wanted to ask the Gen X crowd, uh, who, you know, the Gen X crowd who follow us. Did you guys have like a gatekeeping culture, like Gen Z does? Or like were certain styles frowned upon? And I mean specifically like within your groups, you know. Um, I mean, we have
Also, the idea of
groups.
posers, I
Yeah,
think.
posers. Yeah, that's like a big thing today. Even if you have like a group of friends who are all interested in the same thing, you can definitely have some friends who are calling you posers or just gatekeeping like within your small little group. Like, oh, you don't really enjoy that, you know, or you don't know what this means, you know, like you don't even have the context to begin to understand what this means. And I'm just like, maybe it's just ignorance. I don't really know like if this kind of thing existed in the 90s. I'm thinking it didn't. I'm thinking that that's kind of a more recent development, but I'm really curious to know because
Yeah, it's interesting because now this music is more niche, right? Or like niche, it's very popular, but
right.
how was that feeling when it just came out?
Yeah.
Like, were people
Yeah.
more like how do you feel about something being both like having the alternative label but being as popular as it was? I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like when the opinions were really forming, you know? Like when we look at music now and we look at opinions of people online. I mean, the music that we listen to has been out for, you know, 20 to 30 years. So these opinions they've been allowed to develop. Some of these opinions have been alive for longer than we are, you know, or than we've been. So it's easy to like look at those opinions and agree with them or disagree with them, but like when these opinions on these songs are just starting to form, you know, what did that look like? And how did like disagreements between opinions happen, you know?
Well, I think the internet definitely at least can make a group of people believe one thing in a easier fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say, Nevermind currently is seen as like the most influential rock album of the 90s. But that's only because it's been out for so long. Like, what were the opinions of when it came out? Definitely not that. Probably more, not as cohesive, maybe. There had to be people who
Yeah.
were against it then.
I think
Like this is no
that's good to lead into we're talking about the big four, and Nirvana is, indisputably the most popular.
the biggest. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, one of the most popular bands of all time. Everybody knows Nirvana.
The name
But
alone is
definitely,
more popular than the band, I
yeah,
think.
exactly. Yeah. You know. And I mean, how many TikToks do you see a day where someone's wearing a Nirvana shirt and someone goes up to some poor kid, name three songs, you know what I mean? Like they're huge, but they're definitely the
Yeah.
biggest grunge band ever. Um and why is that? I like Nevermind is obviously a huge. It just me personally, I think that the topics and ideas and even instrumentally, like Alice in Chains is the best grunge band. Is it really just because Nirvana did it first? Why, obviously Kurt Cobain was a big factor, but why do you think like was it really just because people could relate to them more than any of the other grunge bands that existed?
Um, as like Alice in Chains is also my favorite grunge band, I
Mm-hmm.
think it has to do with the sound and the sequencing of that album, which I listened to earlier. I just think that production was at the time definitely unmatched for like a rock album. Like I think it's just hook after hook after hook. And the songs are also shorter than I think in like Dirt. I think just more accessible than Dirt, I think. More so. Like each song's like 2, 3, 4 minutes. You have like a guitar hook at the beginning. The drums are super loud. I think it's just definitely the most accessible album of the big four. I think that's why it
Okay.
has
Yeah.
had its staying power. Like,
Right. And that's fair. The accessibility of music is part of what makes it so some songs so popular. I think that that's why the artists who are popular today are so popular is these shared experiences that humans have, you know.
right,
I mean, for some people, for me, for example, music is a very spiritual thing. Maybe this is something that we'll talk about in like a later episode. I just think it's a really neat thing when you can listen to a song, or like two different people can listen to a song coming from different backgrounds, but for that period where you're both listening to the song, like you both could be having the same emotions. You could both be perceiving it, maybe you have different perceptions or interpretations of the song, but like the emotions that you're feeling could be the same. And you don't that's something that I think you uniquely get out of music. I don't think that that's something that you can get out of like reading a story or even watching a movie just because there's a visual aspect to it. But music is, you know, uh it's very formative emotionally, you know. And it Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is Nirvana's most popular song, both in streams and just culturally. It's the most popular. Um, I wouldn't say that I have very strong emotions when I listen to the song, but I can definitely understand it. Somebody who's you know younger and uh, I mean, this is definitely very rebellious theme. You know, um,
right. And that is another reason why I think it's the most popular album and band. I think it very effectively and um, concisely just has this feeling of just this rebellious nature. I think both Smells Like Teen Spirit and the second song on that album, In Bloom, definitely mention um, or they make a distinction between the kind of people who kind of just listen to music and then the people that feel it, right? And I
no, how
think,
so? I don't really follow with that actually. Like, I feel like both of those songs are um expressing like very specific things, you know. Well, I mean, Smells Like Teen Spirit maybe a little less so because the lyrics are
yeah.
kind of vague and up for interpretation, but I don't really see like the distinction between somebody who's following the music and somebody who's feeling the music.
Well, it's just more, well, yeah, it's not as what's the word? Like a thorough description, but
Right.
I think it does present a picture there of like the more like jocks, popular crowd claiming to like the music, but then
Hmm.
maybe not feeling like the narrator in that song more so, I think. There's a
Right.
distinction between the narrator and like an outside group of popular people.
Okay. Yeah. No, definitely. I think the narrator in most grunge songs uh definitely sees themselves as different from like the status quo, I guess. Which I think is part of what makes grunge so popular, right? I think everybody wants to be like something different. And maybe that's why grunge can't be as popular today is you can't subscribe to that in today's day and age. Like if you want to be
Yeah, it
like
was a desirable aesthetic. I think that's the distinction there. It was a desirable aesthetic. But now if you're like if you look alternative at all, you're just emo. And that's just what you get branded as, I think.
which is true, right? I mean, yeah. I
Which
mean
which is
it's kind of
true.
yeah. It is kind of funny and it's yeah, how like being niche was more desired back in the day and now it's definitely like frowned upon, you know.
Yeah.
Because
Self-expression,
what
I
does
think, was
being niche
more
really
revered.
mean? Yeah, I like and I think one of the lessons we learned from the 90s was just how I mean, I keep saying the word consumerism, but really, like consumerism is such a big part of our culture. And how can you be niche under consumerism? You know, like
Right.
we all listen to music, we're all
Nirvana shirts
paying
from
for
everywhere.
music. Yeah, exactly, bro. Name three songs. Can you even name three Nirvana songs? Sitting here talking about Nirvana and
Not right now. It's hard. I mean, yeah, no. So it's hard, to remember
yeah,
them all.
exactly. You can't put me. I know Beans, which is very
Beans
niche,
Beans is a
very
good one.
niche.
That's a niche
Hmm.
pick, dude. That's a niche pick.
Yes,
But is it a
yes.
niche pick? Because
No, because it's on Instagram
you see,
Reels.
it's like it means yeah, right. Like, oh, just random, I guess, song from Dirt. Hate to Feel, is that song niche? Doesn't that song have like tens of thousands of listens?
Right.
I think one person would call that niche, but the other person wouldn't. I
It's
think
niche. The like. I feel like what would make something niche
it's
is
also
really just the
buzzword.
interpretation. Yeah, definitely. But like, you can have niche interpretations of a song, maybe. But at that point, I wouldn't use the word niche. I would use the word unique because niche is a very like.
Right.
It's definitely a
Niche is not as
bad
broad as
word.
unique.
Yeah. Yeah.
In today's day and age, I would say niche. Well, definitely not in its inception. It was just a word. But now, yes, it'll get put in quotation marks with a couple of rose emojis behind it, and someone's like, "Oh, I'm
It's
so niche,
true.
guys."
This we're making
And that's
a
another thing of the whole irony of everything too. Like the whole irony. You can't
right.
be like, "Oh, I just listened to that Pearl Jam album. I
Yeah,
really
man.
like resonate with like Black or Garden." But no,
You and
because
everyone
you
else,
can't
bro. You
anymore.
and everyone else.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. You are not allowed to express I at least on more short form kind of content like Instagram and TikTok, it feels like there's always someone in the comments that has to feel like they have to point out, I felt this too. So you're
Mm-hmm.
invalid
Yeah.
because you're not unique. But why does agitation is a big thing on social media, especially when it comes to music.
Agitation, and you bring up a really good point with just like having the comment sections available to you is like I think that with social media it's made it very hard to tell the difference between when somebody's seeking attention or when somebody's genuinely just trying to share something to connect with other people that feel the same way. Like I think it's really hard for our generation to tell the difference between attention seeking and wanting to form a genuine connection, you know.
That's the issue with the culture of irony, I think. Probably
Mhm.
it's big on the online space. It's probably its biggest issue, yeah, because it's stopping people from genuinely like inquiring about similar like tastes or feelings that they're having because maybe a person will just think that's like an irony like laced statement, and they'll just respond with like crying emojis or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's why you can't really share your opinions over text, you know?
I know, like you tell someone that damn that river really changed your life, they're gonna just tell you it's not that deep,
This is true. Or they'll call you soft.
or they'll call you soft because you didn't know how it was back then. And that goes back to the agitation that comes from older generations too. You'll just never know how hard it was back then.
Exactly. Yeah. Which maybe I won't. I mean, maybe you have a point, but what is that? If you're not going to share your stories and your
What is
lessons
the
with me, how does
purpose?
that help me? Like the yeah, what is the purpose of that comment? That is attention seeking. That's what that is. Somebody who actually wanted to form a genuine connection with me would tell me, "Oh, like maybe you have your own lessons. Let me tell you about my lessons and why this song is important to me in this way." Not, "Oh, you would never know. You would never know." Yeah, cuz you can't explain it. That's why, cuz
Yeah,
you're a bad teacher,
yeah,
bro.
yeah. The statement "you wouldn't get it" is not something I think, especially when referring to something like a song. I think it speaks to other qualities of yourself when you just spout things like that. Definitely.
Yeah, cuz is it really I'm not willing to learn, or is it that you're not willing to teach, you know? I mean, I just feel like that's the issue with the older generations making comments like that, you know.
Uh, No, this will be a bit of a mic drop, I think, for our over 30-year-old fans.
Which
We'd
I'm
love
not,
to hear stories.
just for a little bit of glaze, I guess. I'm obviously not saying that I hate Gen X, right? I mean, your generation made all of the music that I listen to, and it's very important to me, you know? I mean, like that's obviously not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I think that there's some members of Gen X who um maybe want a little more attention than they're receiving or something, and they're not willing to pass on the lessons to our generation that you know that you're claiming are something that we don't even have the capability to learn, but we can't learn if you don't teach us, you know and I think that sometimes the older generations still forget that, did you forget what it was like to be a young person and what it was like to have to build yourself up? These are still things that we experience today. I don't understand why it's like, oh, you'll never understand. Like, what? Like, how would we not? We're literally doing the same thing.
I hope we break that cycle. I do think, 'cause I to see that continuing. I see that continuing. We're gonna do that with Gen Alpha, dude. Like, let's
That's
be
a
honest.
really
We're it's
another
Gen
really good question for the Gen
Alpha.
X is, did your parents tell you this? Did your parents tell you you would never understand what it was like to have to grow up in the what it would have been 60s, 50s or 60s? You never would have understood. Like, is this something your parents told you? I'm actually curious because I've not heard this from the Gen X people that I know. And I've not heard this from like, you know, my parents and my friends' parents. So I'm curious to know if your parents also said this to you and if I will be saying it to my children, you know.
I mean, music is something that should be able to bridge the gap with that, though. I mean, seemingly not with the comments we get, but I think it can be a very useful tool for that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dirt gives us a really good look into the past, the 90s. But I mean, Dirt, it's funny because I mean, Wood is Alice in Chains' second most popular song. Alice in Chains' most popular song is actually Man in the Box, which I think is interesting, and I think that there's a lot of ways that you can compare that song to the themes of Smells Like Teen Spirit. You know, a little bit, I guess.
More absurd of a vibe, kind of.
Right. And Man in the Box is definitely very similar to uh Soundgarden, which is another one of the big fours, Soundgarden's most popular song is Black Hole Sun. Um, and both of these songs I think capture this. They both capture this like agony, for lack of a better word, this misery and this despair, but they capture it in different ways. You know, like I think,
Right. Man in the Box is more abrasive and dirty, and Black Hole Sun is definitely presented in a more beautiful way, vocally and sonically for sure.
yeah, it's a little cleaner. I think
It's a much
that's a
bigger
good
of a
way.
sound as well.
Mm-hmm. Black Hole Sun definitely has some interesting lyrics. Black Hole Sun, won't you come wash away the rain? That's a very that might be like of the big fours, big four, I guess, like the most popular songs of the big four. That might actually be the one that's like the most out there to me. Because when I read these lyrics, I'm thinking, what is the black hole sun and what is the rain? The rain is this, this something you're trying to wash away. Maybe it's problems that you have, something that you've done, something that's been done to you, sadness, loneliness. And the black hole sun is it's this it's bittersweet, right? The sun is a very it's like a generally it's depicted as like a warm, happy thing, but the black hole is definitely it's very demanding, right? The black hole sun
Taking
is some
away
kind of yeah, the black hole sun is some kind of substance, probably heroin, right? And that's washing away the rain. But really, when you're washing away this rain using heroin, you're just inviting an even bigger problem in, you know? And that's why I think that that's very interesting to
and
be the
black
most.
hole. Yeah, the black hole image is definitely like a black hole expanding for sure. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I would
Yeah. It's
assume
taking. It's taking
an
something from
overtaking
you.
thing. Yeah, an overtaking thing.
Yeah. And it's just constantly demanding. Like a black hole doesn't quit, you know? Yeah.
Which could be man in the box a little bit too. It's definitely just about someone who's caged in by either substances or like feelings and feels like trapped.
Yeah.
I think that's a cohesive thing about these bands too. The idea of being there's like a boot over your head a little bit, whether it be drugs or the man. And I
The
do think that's
man.
important. The idea of the man, I think, is very central to just the rebellious nature of a lot of these songs. They're definitely, when they're not about drugs, they're definitely just against something. They're against somebody,
Right.
some
Yeah.
belligerent thing in their lives.
And that's, I think, again, that goes back to like why grunge fell off is, the, these grunge bands became the man. Really. I
Yeah,
mean,
right. Yeah, right.
when you become the people that are forming these opinions, or the formers of opinions, then what? You know.
Exactly. You're just the mainstream. Which is why I think if it were a newer thing today, it would live the same life cycle, I think. I think it would. Potentially shorter than 5 years, like Grunge
It would
did.
not be nearly, I think, in my opinion, it would not be nearly as popular today as it was in the 90s. You couldn't make a community out of grunge today, I think. Not like you could in the 90s.
This, I think you do, for that, you do need to look at the surrounding state of pop music for sure. As
Right.
definitely today, rock is not a, well, mainstream, yes, but in the charts, no, not really.
No,
Back then, for
no.
sure, yeah. So it is a different musical landscape.
Right, yeah, just what people enjoy instrumentally, but I also just think in terms of lyrically. Obviously, there's some grunge songs like that we talked about that are a little more, you know, mainstream, I guess, or accessible is the word that you use better. There are some grunge songs that are a little more
Yeah.
accessible, but I don't think that these feelings are as relatable to people. Maybe it's just because people have gotten happier. I mean, we know that loneliness is a huge problem with Gen Z, right? This is something that's been consistent. And so at least that part of grunge I think would live on. But, I think that our generation is maybe as a result of the 90s has become a little more comfortable with just sitting in, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but like sitting in the sadness and the misery and just kind of like, sludging through it. It's not going anywhere, but like what can you do about it? Whereas I think for, in the 90s, it was maybe more common to turn to a substance instead of just like sitting in. Not that people didn't just sit in it the same way that we do today, but the culture around substances was different. So we don't really do that as much today. And I think that was a very important part of grunge was like, drugs. I mean,
Oh yeah, all albums for druggies.
yeah. That's why we wouldn't understand. Um but I guess you know, before we take a seat on this one, um I do want to talk about Pearl Jam because they are the last of the big four and we didn't really touch them as much. And that's, to me, it's because Pearl Jam is like a little bit different. They're definitely not as immersed in grunge as a culture, and a lot of the songs are more so narratives of other people, you know? Like, I mean,
Yes, a lot of or a couple female perspective songs, which is
yeah,
not
which is in,
the
yeah, you don't
nor
see that as much.
or
Yeah.
explicitly female, which definitely is not a thing in Alice in Chains. There's a few in Nirvana, but there are definitely a couple notable ones from Pearl Jam, like Daughter, Why Go. Those two definitely explicitly reference a a girl, and that's interesting. I think it's interesting.
We can also
Why
look
do you
at
think that?
like well, their two most popular songs are Even Flow and Black, right? And these are both, I mean, in terms of your question of why we're following like a woman's perspective for these songs, I don't really know. I mean, maybe it was just I really don't know because it's not like Pearl Jam, I don't think was a very resonated a lot with women in terms of grunge. I don't think so. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
That's why I think it's interesting.
but it is an interesting perspective, like Daughter, I think. Well, I think it's interesting because Daughter is a really good perspective, but like you can definitely still be, a son, not a daughter, and feel these words very much in the same way. And I think it's kind of interesting to, to write songs like that that are a little more gender neutral, I guess. They're not gender neutral, but like you understand what I'm getting at here, right? Like I
No,
think it's
yeah, I
definitely
do.
interesting that he introduced these female perspectives to show that like it doesn't really matter. Like this isn't something that's unique to one single person. This is something that everybody is capable of feeling or experiencing, you know.
No, right. I just think like when I do think of the big four, I do think of Soundgarden, Nirvana, and Alice in Chains more right together in that druggy, rebellious feeling. When most Pearl Jam songs do just seem to be narratives.
Yeah, like Even Flow and Black definitely. I mean, what Even Flow is kind of
Not the
like.
same person, probably, too, I
No,
think.
no, no, definitely not. Because Even Flow is more. I mean, I read it. It's about like somebody who's definitely going through some money issues, right? Or some type of issue. I think money, right?
Homelessness, I think, too, is in there.
Yeah,
But
homelessness.
no, I
Yeah.
just see them as a little apart. I see them as like a little apart thematically than the other
Mm-hmm.
three.
Well, it's also I think Black is probably a more accessible song. I mean, it's a very sad song, but more people can probably relate to the yearning that's involved in it than maybe the
Yeah.
homelessness and
It's a more
even
common type
flow.
of yearning.
Yeah.
Like,
Um
I would say the self-titled song from Dirt is a yearning song, but I don't think that's the kind of yearning the average person feels like, where Black is a more accessible type of yearning.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think there's also a reason that Black is so popular with our generation, you know. Just being alone, and maybe if it's the first time that you've encountered that sort of like something like that with somebody, you know, and then you go back to the loneliness, that must really suck, you know. And it's definitely a more timeless song. But definitely it's just interesting how Pearl Jam being part of the Big Four is, yeah, to me they're very different from the other three grunge bands in that in there. So
All from Seattle, though. All from Seattle.
yeah, I guess if we want to give an honorable shout out to Stone Temple Pilots, which
Oh, that's not
might
grunge.
be, yeah, no, they're not grunge, bro. They're not grunge. They're not from Seattle, bro. Yeah, but no, I mean, I think they're definitely in my top three. Fake grunge, you know, like Alice in Chains is definitely first. Stone Temple Pilots might be second. I listen to a lot more Stone Temple Pilots than I do Pearl Jam or Soundgarden or Nirvana. So,
What
I
about
mean,
top three grunge like records?
that's all gonna be Alice in Chains. I think so, at least. Tripod is definitely up there. Dirt definitely up there. Is Nut? Do we think Nutshell is grunge? Not. I'm sorry, I'm a poser.
Mm.
Jar of Flies.
Sure, it's just like some more acoustic stuff, but yeah, I would say it's still thematically there. Definitely the most solemn grunge project, I do think, though.
And that's why Kurt Cobain hated them. I'm kidding.
Well, no, yeah, and that's what I think a good part about this all still. I do think like something like In Utero is very different than something like even Alice in Chains self-titled, yet they're definitely both still grunge.
Oh yeah, yeah. They definitely cover different things, and I definitely like Tripod more. But In Utero is more excessive, I think. Which is really what the song goes back to: is was Nirvana the most popular because they were just the most accessible, and Kurt Cobain
Mm,
was such a
I wouldn't.
figure.
I think it goes back to more so Kurt Cobain because I think Nevermind is more so tied to the initial um birth of grunge, this rebellious attitude, while I believe In Utero is so popular because of the slight mysticism of the people behind this movement being so cool, right?
Okay,
Because I
yeah,
think In Utero is definitely the more absurd record for sure. I don't know what he's talking about in some of those. And a lot of
right.
it's definitely very explicitly about suicide. And I think that's maybe a bridge because that came out in 93. So at that point, I think you already knew all the names like Eddie Vedder, Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley. I think that speaks to how these musical movements grow, where it sometimes becomes slightly more about who's writing these songs. I think. I would even say like in Jar of Flies is definitely a very different project than Dirt, I think. Not very different, but definitely different vibes, I think.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, that's what I think. That's part of what makes Alice in Chains' discography like so great, because you get different feels from each. Tripod is very different from Dirt, in my opinion. Even though they cover some very similar themes at times, they're very different from each other.
It's
You know.
to me it sounds like just a person at a later stage in life than Dirt is
Hmm.
what that one feels like to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see like uh the maturation, I guess, of a band and the people in it through their work.
I think like just compare the closers from each.
Oh, let's not talk about it.
Like Over Now is definitely
We're not talking about
well,
the
you
song.
know what? I think we should talk about it in the sense that maybe that was the last Grunge song, no?
Oh, maybe you might be onto this. Which, wow,
What
that
was
is
that, like
crazy
95?
if so. That is just crazy. Yeah, because what Tripod came out in '95, right? I think.
Yeah, and Nirvana wasn't making albums. Pearl Jam,
Well,
okay, yeah, they were making albums.
right.
But no, I've like people. I think people see 95, 96 as the end of like
Yeah,
the grunge movement. And Over
right.
Now, last song in that album. Well, very beautiful way to close off that movement, I guess, but that speaks to the maturity of the movement too, I think. Something that started with things like Smells Like Teen Spirit, Even Flow, ends with something like Over Now.
Yeah, yeah. It went from something. I would say "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is kind of a juvenile song,
Yeah,
right?
a younger attitude. And Over Now
Hmm.
definitely isn't, I think. So I
Yeah,
do think that's
yeah.
interesting.
Over Now
Because
definitely has
that
followed
wouldn't
the
have been
maturation of somebody through that movement.
like that definitely wouldn't have been on Facelift, I think. It would be very out of
Oh
place.
no. Well, facelifts for another episode because we're going to be talking about how
Right.
facelift is basically just.
This is a hot take. There are a few in there that are
Stay
good. See
tuned. Stay
Sorrow.
tuned. No, there's a couple in there that are good, but I mean, some of them are very. You can tell
The
when they're
vibe is
put together.
different.
Yeah.
Like when I think Alice in Chains as a cohesive meal, it's like Dirt Jar Flies, self-titled, and then Facelift sits on the side.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple things in facelift that are good, but it's definitely not my top three.
But as a project, it is not. I don't hold it to the same regard as the other three for sure.
No, not even.
Some
And
say
this was why
it's
Kurt
10
Cobain
out of
hated Alice in Chains.
seemingly valid, I guess.
Actually, you do have a
Seemingly
point.
valid.
Maybe Kurt Cobain and I had more in common than I initially thought,
Hmm.
except
Well,
for
let's not
the
hope too
drug
much.
use thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But
So I
no, to
guess
like,
yeah, to answer the question that we asked originally, right, which was could would grunge do as well as it did in the '90s today? I'm gonna go with no. Like it's just the we learned a lot of lessons from the '90s, you know, especially about consumerism, how we interact with consumerism and how we interact with like the triangle between being like a materialistic person yourself and being like a spiritual person. You know, we learned a lot about that from the '90s, I think. Um, and I just think there's just not a space for it today. There's no community that would build like it did in the '90s.
yeah, I will also say no. I just don't think that kind of music is what is just pop nowadays. Like, I would say the closest thing to that today is probably the punk scene, and that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely something that's very underground.
Yeah.
Like, I think it comes with just the identity of what that probably was initially, like, yeah, rebellious. Like, the punk scene is definitely not mainstream because that's definitely not what it's about. It's not about being the mainstream. And that's probably not what these albums were intended to be at all. Probably not. Probably not. But they ended up being that, and that died out in 5 years, seemingly. It fizzled out.
Well, yeah, because one of
I
the
don't think
things
that
that
would have even started today.
you mentioned was like Kurt Cobain didn't seem like somebody who wanted to be famous, right? I don't think he really enjoyed being famous as compared to
Right.
like the '80s. You know, the big bands of the '80s kind of did enjoy being a famous person, and I think today
Yeah,
we've gone back
they're
to famous
caricatured
people
as
like
party
being
people.
famous. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of it. You know, I don't think that grunge was necessarily designed to be mainstream. Kind of what it became. Um,
Yeah. And another thing with that, I feel like with the internet, there's so many eyes on you. And if even back then you had an issues with the press, imagine having issues with random people taking videos of you and then just uploading them online.
Yeah.
That'd definitely be way more of
That's
a widespread issue if that was an issue. Well, that just ties back to the authenticity of it all. How are you authentic
right.
when you make all this money?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There'd be
Yeah, how
way
can
more
you be?
pushback about that today, I think, for sure.
Mhm. It's yeah, especially like with what you mentioned, you're being watched way closer today, you know. It's so easy to just find somebody and take a video of them.
And
I
just
mean,
say something about,
you can't really have a private lifestyle today if you're like a famous person, I think. Like somebody's going to figure it out, you know, how
yeah.
the online world works. So,
Then it
yeah.
seems to be that there's more issues with our current generation in relation to the music rather than necessarily issues with the music for today's generation. Because plenty of people definitely still like these bands. I
Oh,
see
yeah,
like so
sure.
many TikToks of them.
Well,
So I think it is
I
more so
think
about the broad
plenty.
generation.
I mean, we see these things because we're interested in these things, right? But like, how many are
Right.
actually as immersed in it? You know, like I think it's a very small or decently small percentage of our generation because I see these things
Relative, yeah.
online.
Relative,
I've
yeah.
met like two people in real life, like not like at a concert or something, but like in passing, that actually enjoy the same bands that I do. You know, two
That I
like
think that
you meet
speaks
people
to
every
the
day.
culture of the internet.
Yeah. So I think that maybe this like I don't think we enjoy it as a generation. It's a very small percentage of our generation, I think. We just see them more
Yeah.
because of the internet, you know.
Right now, I think even like sifting through Spotify streams, I thought this was very interesting that Smells Like Teen Spirit has like 2 billion streams. And then there's like songs in there like On a Plane that have like 50,000. So I think that speaks to how these albums are even looked at today. That there's such a difference between the what's seen as the hits from those albums and like a lesser known song.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
That speaks to the longevity. Like you need to have maybe like a relative or something. Yeah, I would say that's probably the most common way of like knowing about this music, I think, for sure.
Yeah, is
Someone
your
in like your
like
family.
people's
And
parents. Well,
that's the way
definitely
it was
people's
for me.
parents. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was introduced to not like a more of the stuff I listened to like Tool, Perfect Circle. I mean, Smashing Pumpkins was definitely a part of my childhood. That was something I played, you know, when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, definitely you're influenced a lot by the music growing up, I think. And that's a lot of the kids today who enjoy 90s music or early 2000s music mainly because of their parents exposing
Right,
them to
because I
something similar at least.
yeah, because I just don't in this mainstream just internet like TikTok, I think if I didn't use the algorithm to look for these things that I like, I would never see them. So yeah, I see what you mean about
Yeah.
like it is
Yeah.
a very small. Like I see it because it's my algorithm, what I enjoy. Algorithms are everything now too, I think. Back then you had MTV, which was just
Oh
like a TV
yes.
channel.
Yes.
Just like
Yeah.
the
No, MTV is
yeah.
crazy. Yeah. I just maybe it would have been easier to find music back then, honestly, because it was just, you know, it'd pop up on MTV.
Oh no, yeah.
Today it's like you really have to go search for stuff, in my opinion. Even the algorithm okay, but they're not as good as like, you know, knowing what you want to
I
listen to,
think
I
that's good
think.
for future episode, I think, potentially. Where we
MTV?
just talk about how MTV slash how societally we treat music, I think, as a medium for just for what it is, I think. Because you seem to just feel it a lot. You say it's like spiritual to you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like that's definitely not the norm of how we treat it.
Oh no.
How we
No.
treat it is mainly background noise.
Yeah, especially today, I think. It's hard, it's definitely you don't find as many people
The
who
drop in
really
physical
feel it.
media as well. For
Of my CDs, the consumer.
I love consuming. I love consuming
Oh, we
$10
got the
CDs.
CDs. I'd go grab mine, but they're
They're
behind
in
the
the
green
vault.
screen. I don't wanna mess up the studio
Yeah,
cassettes that I
I wouldn't
have.
want to. I wouldn't want to upset the hound.
The the hound, bro. Love that guy.
How's he doing back there?
Oh, he's good. He's very he's curious. His favorite song is "Goddamn" off Tripod. So,
Ooh, I would be surprised if it wasn't from Tripod. Good song. Listen to the
oh
album
yeah,
today.
yeah.
Very good. Very.
Who's your cat?
Oh, my cat. Meowskulls.
Yeah,
That's what we're calling him.
schools.
Meowskull.
He looks very
He was talking
inquisitive. I think is the
distinguished.
word. Oh, distinguished is good. Yeah.
Oh no, he's more of a. Honestly, I'm surprised he stuck around this long. He claims to be more of a tool.
A tool. Okay, what's his favorite song?
Something about 10,000 days changing his life or something.
Oh no, he's one of those.
He's one of those.
Rosetta
I'm glad the
Stones.
hound keeps grounded.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's some good stuff on 10,000 Days. Um,
Oh no, I listen to that too. Yeah,
Even though it's a 0 out of 10 album for you, for some people it's not as much. Some people
right.
can still enjoy it. You know.
Right. I mean, Vicarious is like no the patient, but it's a good song
Okay.
nonetheless.
Intention is a good song. We'll come back. We'll come back to this. Um, we'll come back to this.
Atmospheric.
Very atmospheric.
Atmospheric.
Well, that might be it for today, right? Talking about grunge, and you start talking about some prog metal. I don't know. You
Yeah,
know,
no.
the genre
Drift off
elitists are
there.
gonna be too happy about that from this episode.
Oh no. Yeah, because we're now are we might need to put like Prague or something in the description now.
Just to make sure people aren't, you know, scared off by the 2 minutes we talked about it at the end.
So I think it's like a good time to like grab the ceramic wrap and wrap up this meal.
Yeah, the takeout boxes and take home the leftovers. I think. Don't
The
forget
shorts. The
your
shorts.
plastic utensils. You know,
Oh, of course, of course.
because if
Pushing
there's
the
anything we
chairs and
learned today, it's that everyone's a consumer. So don't forget your styrofoam and your plastic. I'm
oh
sorry.
yes.
I'm sorry.
I guess we push in the chairs and that was the middle of the meal episode 2.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this is the sandwich packing up.
And the worm. And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.